welcome back to day 2. I don't want to take too much time actually because there's somebody I want to listen to, and would like to introduce Pearse O'Donohue, who's the Director for Future Networks in the European Commission in DG Connect. And he gives us a nice idea about what the Commission is up to in the future, I think. And please, the stage is yours. And
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody, including those online. So I'm glad to hear that you had a great party. I won't give too many headaches to those who are already suffering from headaches. First of all, just to introduce myself, you've heard my title, but what does that mean? I'm sort of the new kid on the block, because within the European Commission, we have reorganized ourselves recently in order to bring together the work that we have been doing on blockchain, including with this association with many others, together with work that we're doing on Web 4.0, next generation internet, as well as internet governance. And I'll be coming back to that word governance in a while. But first of all, just to acknowledge the importance of this event and the work of the association. It's really a great opportunity for us to hear from you, to take stock of progress, but also perhaps to deliver some messages and then see how they go down with you. Because we particularly appreciate the event in the sense that it gives us some of the faces that we need to deal with. It increases interactions between you, the dialogue in particular between innovators and public authorities. I was just talking with a participant earlier on and noticing from the brief time that I have been working on this sector, the number of associations, the number of initiatives, different groups working, not just in Brussels, but outside of the bubble, more importantly, across the globe on blockchain, which is great. It shows that this is a vibrant community, but it also creates a challenge when it comes to really feeding into and controlling the governance discussions as that moves ahead with what is a rapidly developing technology. Now, over the last 5 years, the Commission has supported a lot of the work done on blockchain technologies. But we've also been seeking to ensure that the technology takes account of our legal framework and takes full account of users' needs. So what I want to do, and I was told I had to be careful because I have a professional speechwriter in the audience, so I'm going to talk about 3 things. That's what we do when we write speeches in the European Commission. But it's really going to start with what we can do, but then move much more towards what we can do together, and really finish with what we hope and expect you, the blockchain community, to do, partly so that you can avoid the bureaucrats here taking a separate approach with regards to some of the challenges that we see already with regard to blockchain technology. So as I've said, the first point is, of course, the support that we have for innovation, for the technology, for developing the communities, and their work, your work on addressing the different challenges that the technology represents. But secondly, we want to reinforce the dialogue between you, bring these groups together, and also the dialogue that you have with regard to legal certainty, so talking to the authorities, talking to national and European regulators, and really already taking into account what you know from the technology will be the challenges in the future. And then, of course, we have to look at work we do together to promote standardization, interoperability, and really to improve the reliability of blockchain solutions. So there you are. That's my menu. I'll try to be as quick as possible, but just allow me to take a few minutes to pat myself on the back and just how good the Commission is. But we've been using taxpayers' money since 2017, in fact, to support more than 350 million euros worth of innovation projects, research and innovation, mostly under the Horizon 2020 and then Horizon Europe program. But we've also devoted money for skills development. That's been supported by the Erasmus program, which Erasmus Plus, which some of you are probably familiar with. And more recently, we have a program dedicated to digital innovation, which is the Digital Europe program. And that has actually focused specifically on the development of blockchain solutions. So we've had projects in a various number of areas: education, mobility, security, Internet of Things, and then going into specific application sectors like manufacturing, food safety, and so on. Some of you have been directly involved in those projects. As well as with you, we're also working with the member states, and we're now in the process of finalizing an EU-wide blockchain service infrastructure, the EBSI, which will be under the responsibility of public authorities as conveners, but will bring together the blockchain communities in order to form what we are calling a European Digital Infrastructure Consortium. I'm just going to say that again in the abbreviation because I've heard about 20 abbreviations already this morning. This is my one to throw at you, the EDIC, EDIC. You'll hear more about this because the blockchain EDIC is likely to be the very first of these new creatures across a whole range of application sectors. We're working in mobility, we're working in languages and linguistics, but blockchain is in the lead, partly because of the work that you have done in this association and at global level already over the last 2 to 3 years. Now, we have to make it operational. We're just crossing the T's and then ensure that the EDIC as an organization has the proper staff and technical ability to operate what actually will be this platform, this infrastructure. We have 9 member states already involved, led by Belgium, and we do hope that this will actually be something that we'll be announcing very soon once we have finished the preparatory work. Now, the focus of this EDIC is to really bring together and leverage what is, of course, a decentralized technology, but bringing it together where there are points of interconnection to ensure interoperability and that dreadful Brussels word, harmonization, where that is relevant, in order particularly to enhance public services. And of course, ensuring that the services that you develop are actually compatible or in some cases interoperable with legacy systems. So here, this is one of the limits to our involvement. We are working with and will always have a natural affinity with the work done by public authorities, the work in public sectors, but also making sure that technology, which is naturally developed by the private sector with a lot of private sector applications, which are for the good of the economy and society, but where we also then help to reach beyond that to see where are the public service applications, where are the public sector applications, so that those who are not necessarily in the lead on technological innovations can benefit from that technology. One thing about that role that we play is what we are not doing, but also what we are not encouraging others to do. And that is, we're not seeking to disrupt existing models with blockchain, just simply by eliminating intermediaries. That's not what most stakeholders expect. We certainly would like to see a healthy competitive environment. We would certainly like to see certain existing business models disrupted, but it is not the point. We're not going to use blockchain as a battering ram. I don't think that's how you want to be used either. It is more to the point, what are the new applications, the new services that can benefit everybody, which can, of course, thrive in the private sector, but which have an impact on society as a whole. That, again, is one of the limits to our involvement. We don't seek to control, predict, or for that matter, get involved in all aspects of blockchain development. Now, in doing so, it's not that we are standing off, but in being realistic about our role, we come to that second point I wanted to make, which is a very important one about reinforcing the dialogue between operators and users, and then at the same time increasing the legal certainty in the application of the rules. And let me stress this point. Rules that are in some cases still in preparation, where you as the industry, you as the experts who understand the technology, can have a vital role in shaping what is in terms of the guardrails that we put in place for this technology and avoiding misunderstanding by people like me with regard to what the technology does and doesn't do, what can and cannot be expected from your community. So we have recently had an agreement on the Data Act that has a direct role. We have negotiations at an advanced stage on the EU Digital Identity Framework. That's in final stages of negotiation. And both of those will have an impact on the deployment of decentralized blockchain solutions. Now, I know that yesterday you had quite some detailed discussions, particularly in the financial area, on the market in crypto assets. There will be a discussion, I think, today, or if else it's taken place, on decentralized finance. Not areas in which I claim to have any expertise, but it is the concerns that have been raised with regard to consumer protection or financial stability or compliance with existing regulations that, of course, involve the Commission. Experts in other parts of the Commission dealing, for example, with financial regulation, dealing with data protection. But it is the Commission that you're dealing with in terms of the implementation of existing and perhaps future EU regulation. Because we have seen, I suppose, what we could politely call tensions or questions of compatibility between decentralized blockchain models and some regulations. Take, for example, one that would mandate the identification of the responsible intermediaries and require those intermediaries to take specific action. Another one which we're all more familiar with because it's been around for longer is the GDPR, the Data Protection Regulation, where there are examples with regard to the right to be forgotten, but where we know already, without dictating what the technical solution is, that technical solutions exist. They can be engineered into blockchain to ensure that it is effective and therefore in compliance with the GDPR. Now, I'm not saying it's solved. I'm saying that there is the possibility for solution, which brings us back to one of the themes that we have in that first issue that I mentioned, which is our involvement in supporting innovation. We look for not just security by design, but privacy by design. And the more you as innovators, when you're designing blockchain technologies, services, and products, have that in mind, the more likely you are future-proofing your technology from regulatory crosswinds. You will be compliant, and therefore you should have plain sailing into the market. So while it is our obligation, our responsibility as policymakers to ensure that the legal framework is clear, it is that it also, of course, enables innovation and it protects rights and obligations, including intellectual property. It is the responsibility of the blockchain industry to come up with workable solutions to address these problems where they exist. And the earlier you do that in the innovation cycle, the easier and the less costly. But of course, you have to have that engagement with regulators. So that's why establishing the dialogue with regulators at national and European level is so important. We have associations like Blockchain for Europe or INAPBA, where there can be and should be these discussions, such as those that you had yesterday about financial regulations in particular. But it's also why we have launched, under the digital program, the European Blockchain Sandbox. Now, that seeks to really deepen the dialogue with regard to specific technologies, specific innovators, and regulators, and it creates a safe space to test solutions and also to show regulators how the technology works. So we've already announced early this month 20 projects, a cohort as we call it. We'll be selecting another 20 next year and another 20 in 2025. And we're matching those projects with regulators in the member states to ensure that that dialogue takes place. So as I said, that's really how the sandbox should work, in real time with regulators, looking at it and discussing with you as to how this works, what might be the regulatory implications. So that has generated a lot of interest, we're glad to say. We want to consolidate the lessons learned, and we want to, of course, facilitate a better understanding, including, firstly, by ourselves, of how the technology works, what it is that is coming, and work towards a harmonized interpretation of current and future regulations. So it should also, of course, help public authorities at national and even local and regional level to understand when blockchain can be a solution. And that goes back to what I was saying about the fact that one of our roles is to push these technologies to users, particularly the public sector, who are not normally in the lead in such developments. But there are applications for trade, for anti-counterfeiting, taxation, and then, of course, and I'll come back to this, solutions supporting environmental policies, such as the digital product passport that we are working on at the moment. And then I come to the third piece, which is about promoting standardization and interoperability. Now here, perhaps I will look a bit more relaxed, because I've spent a lot of my career working on telecoms regulation, technology standardization, into details like radio spectrum regulation and standardization at European and global level. It's a process which is multifaceted, and to a certain extent, every new generation of technologies that comes thinks that they can do it differently. In some cases, that's successful. In other cases, it's not, particularly when you meet the entrenched interests of existing technologies and sectors, but also when, as I've said, you have to interface with the prospect of regulation. As you become more significant, you also gain the attention of more and more powerful regulators. And that is something where standardization is critical. Again, it is a way of the community actually reinforcing your position in the market, but at the same time protecting yourself against future shocks. For example, regulatory interventions which will suddenly cut across a business plan and have a serious impact on work that's been done and invested in over several years. So that is why this is a serious piece of work for all of us. From our side, we do have a commitment towards greater standardization. We, of course, as I've said, have, for example, the EU Digital Identity Framework. We have the Data Act. We have others, more specific sector legislation, the regulation on crypto assets, which I think was discussed yesterday. Even in sectors, application sectors, the Digital Energy Action Plan specifically has elements with regard to blockchain as well. And just before the summer, we launched 2 projects to reinforce the participation of European experts in standardization actions for blockchain. Because remember, and perhaps I haven't said this early enough and loud enough, we have ambitions for the European blockchain sector to be in the lead globally. We want you to be there setting the global standards so that we can make sure that Europe remains a focal point for the development of these exciting technologies and, of course, for the businesses that surround them. But the standardization is a cost. It depends largely on the involvement of industry. So you really have to up your game and reinforce your engagement. And that is what I'm talking about when I talk about my years of experience in different sectors. It is all very well to have governments or the European Commission looking at, monitoring, and even trying to participate in some of the standardization standards. But standardization, as it is done rightly, is involving the technologists, the private sector innovators. That is how it should be done. Again, we should be setting the guide rails, but not setting the standards unless they come from the industry. There's one area, however, where that pious thought on my part could clash with the political reality, and that is in relation to sustainability, to energy efficiency, and where the work that you do on standardization would be particularly important. Now, we have very positive developments. The evolution of Ethereum towards a much less energy-consuming model and the use of proof of stake, those are very positive developments, encouraging and a milestone in the maturing of the blockchain sector. But the issue of sustainability remains a crucial one, and it has to be addressed by you collectively. And it is the area where there is, of course, a threat of regulation, which will hopefully seek to reward those who strive towards energy efficiency and to block or penalize those who sacrifice energy efficiency for other commercial interests. We therefore have to create the level playing field here as we do in so many other areas. And I must say that addressing sustainability and the issue of energy efficiency could be a determining factor in the acceptance and success of blockchain technologies. Okay, so just briefly concluding, looking ahead, we have, as I've said, ambitions with regard to blockchain. In the summer, in July, we issued a communication, which is a policy statement on how to support and develop virtual worlds and the transition towards Web 4.0. And here we see the role of blockchain solutions. How do we transition to the next web in which blockchain will play a key role? And how do we ensure that Europe is at the forefront? Again, that ambition for Europe to be in the lead technologically. It's essential that we have the skills. That's one of the challenges facing you as well. And that we empower people to use the technologies. And of course, our involvement in supporting research and innovation will continue. But it's very important also that we do set up and are all aware of the rules of engagement in order to invest properly in standardization, as I've said, which means that we can have for the virtual worlds, or some people have referred to it in the past as the metaverse, that we actually do have a level playing field, but that we have interoperability, that we have industry-led standards which meet public sector or public policy goals while allowing innovation. Now, that is a very ambitious set of features to get to work together. And this is where our work with you will be its most challenging, but I honestly think it's most interesting, the work that we do on virtual worlds. That and Web 4.0, which is where I have had a team working now for over 5 years, really do open up opportunities for blockchain. And that's actually why we have brought the blockchain work within the Commission into the Next Generation Internet team in order to ensure that it is fully integrated. It would really help us also towards the decentralization of the internet, of the web at several levels, which is again an issue, even if you look at it from a geopolitical point of view, that is very, very interesting for us and would respond to several important policy needs beyond your specific focus. Identity management, of course, is another one, and the protection of intellectual property rights. So all of that brings us to the word governance, which is used in many different areas, often loosely. We have spoken for years about internet governance, but the governance model for blockchain, whatever that is, or perhaps governance models, because we don't seek to impose one, needs to be debated here and at European level, at global level, with the multi-stakeholder community. So not just you, the innovators, not just you, the producers, but the key users and, of course, authorities, the regulators. So I'm glad to see that you have all of those issues on your agenda yesterday and today. That's exactly why we see the value of this discussion, of this summit. And I'm very eager to learn your views. This is my first time here in front of you. I look forward to a strong and maybe sometimes difficult, but positive dialogue with all of you so that we can find the solutions to some of the challenges that I have identified, but so that you can tell me what those solutions are and also perhaps correct our thinking if we go off track from your perspective. So I wish you a very pleasant second day once you've got over your hangovers, and I'm sure that you'll have lots of questions from my colleagues later in the day, and thank you very much for having me here. Thank you.